Cricket et al. It's a website, it's a podcast.
Pete, it's a way of life. It's Gideon Haig over here.
Peter Lawler over here.
And welcome to Cricket et al., your independent cricket podcast, coming to you live from the Seven Makeup Room, which apparently is okay to record in, Pete. I'm with you, so it's your fault if we get sprung.
It's okay, technically, I think. Well, yeah.
We'll be right. Be right. We've just had to pause while Matthew Hayden and Sonny Gavaskar came in and made a quick change from Superman into Superman or whatever they do. Haydos gets the shorts on, the Queensland thongs on his feet.
I didn't look around.
No,
I didn't want to be overcome with envy at his size of his chest.
Incredible days cricket. You didn't
huge days cricket.
If
Epic
you're an
days
Australian,
cricket.
if you're an Australian, that's
but a long days cricket. You know, when they add on this extra time for overs lost, these days can assume an epic quality, even without the cricket, because they can stretch on forever. And it did seem like we packed in almost 2 days worth of cricket today.
Well, we deserved that after not getting very much yesterday, did we? We got 13 or 14 odd overs yesterday, and Australia started at none for
28.
Not much. 28. Yep. Now you're across all the details there. Have you got them on that?
No, just call it up
on that typewriter, that electric typewriter of yours. Yes. And what did we close at? 7 for 405. That is a very big score.
It's a beautiful set of numbers, actually. That's Test cricket the way it used to be played.
Did I not hear Stephen Smith saying this very morning that you generally, in this day and age, a 3, any number with a 3 in front of it is good. You don't see innings with 4 in front of them very often anymore. But Australia did that, and they did it thanks to the efforts of Steve Smith, who flew in the slipstream of 1.
Travis Head, well...
Tell me about him.
What do we say about Travis Head that we haven't said before?
Was there another way of saying it?
He seems almost to be redefining Test batting. He's playing with the freedom of a player playing at a lower level. He looks like a gifted club batsman playing against a second-rate attack, because there's almost no way to bowl to him that you're guaranteed a defensive shot. He's got so many aggressive options. Most batsmen, reasonably orthodox, you think if I bowl a certain ball here, if I hit it kind of a default length, I can be guaranteed a dot ball. Yeah. But he just he doesn't give you much room to manoeuvre. There's very little margin for error.
It reminds me of when I used to captain the Seas, and I'd beg the president of the cricket club to there was one kid who played in the A grade. He was a ripper, but he worked in the president's sports store on Saturday mornings, and he would rarely give him the morning off. But when he gave him the morning off, man, it was a great day. And he would just take the attack apart. There is that sense with him. And I reckon that Australia knows it. They almost bank on it. Smith said some very interesting things when he's talking to Alison Mitchell this morning before play. He said, look, batting has, and we're hearing this more and more, and people are rolling their eyes about it, but since they changed the ball 4 years ago, batting has become a lot more difficult in Australia, and certainly the numbers bear that out, the average returns of a batter. Like in Adelaide, what you have to do is just hang on for that to about the 30, 40 over mark, because the ball stays hard and angry much longer. Yep. And there was that sense that, while they didn't do enough, the first 3 batters, I think, what over did Heady walk in about the 35th, I reckon.
They did soak up a lot of balls, didn't they?
Yeah, so they got to the 35th over. Smith was still out there. There was still a large question mark about how he would go. But from the minute Daddy came home, it was like, yabba dabba do, bang. I mean, and you'd seen the others kind of poking and prodding, and had they played anything in front of square, it kind of dribbled out, and it never had the legs to reach the boundary. But from the get-go, he's just boom, and that ball's flying around, and it has such a impact on the game. It has an impact on the other side who just don't know where to bowl him, and he knocks the lesser bowlers off their lines very quickly. They lost the plot today, the Indians, but maybe we'll get to that after the break.
The other thing is, of course, that he soaked up a lot of balls from Bumrah, that first 3. And,
Yeah, that's
Bumrah
right.
can only bowl from one end, and he can probably only bowl about 20 overs a day max. He's bowled 19 today. He's taken 5 for 64. And, he bowled as well as those figures convey. But unfortunately, the other two bowlers, I think, took 2 for 324 between them. Akashdeep didn't bowl too badly today. He could have picked up 2 or 3. He beat the bat a number of times. Siraj could not seem to find a length today, a length that was at all consistently challenging to either edge. And Jadeja was worked around pretty easily. I mean, in the end, it's kind of a first-day pitch because we didn't get much play yesterday. He was never going to be able to do anything but a holding operation. Today he's given away 4 3/4 runs an over, and he seldom beat the bat, and he didn't really compel many full strokes. So Rohit Sharma, having won the toss and sent Australia in, as I'm sure he will be constantly reminded for the next 3 days, has made what would have been a complicated task more complicated still.
Let down by his bowls. There's a symmetry to what goes on out there, isn't there? With Bumrah is so important to that Indian bowling lineup, and potentially one of the great bowlers of all time, possibly. He's averaging 20 in Test cricket. He is a very good bowler, and the Australians recognise that, and that's why they talk about hanging on and getting through that. But he's got no one to go with him. Today, Head had somebody to go with him, and much like what happened against India at the Oval in the World Test Championship, it was Steve Smith who found his feet and went with him. I watched Virat Kohli in the morning. He was sparkling. He was up and about. He was chirpy. He was ready to go. He gave the team address. He was doing those Virat Kohli things, and I thought he was trying to energise his side. But as the day went on, Head just sucked up their energy, didn't he? Took it from them, and the blows that he strikes, they're resounding, aren't they?
Yeah, I guess the one thing you could say that he hasn't really been challenged by the bouncer. After England gave him a working over in 2023 during the Ashes, and they did neutralise him to some degree. India don't seem to have had the confidence or the skills to really sort of challenge him in the first 50 balls of the innings.
Well, we're just Sonny and Hayden were just saying that then, weren't they? Yeah, but. It's unavoidable criticising the Indian attack and plans today and effort, to be honest. Bumrah aside, I mean, you say that Akashdeep looks good. Yeah, he does. And to my mind, at times, Mohammad Siraj looks good, but they rarely look good for 6 deliveries. Compare and contrast to, there's that fantastic bit of social media going around that I think Seven clipped up where you see those first 18 deliveries. Well, you see the first spell of Jasprit Bumrah, and I think after 18 deliveries, I don't think anyone scored off him.
No,
it's
just exhilarating.
It's goosebump stuff.
Yeah.
And you just felt for McSweeney, who's got 4 for... I've lost that card.
4 for 12, I think.
Or 52 deliveries.
He's
Bumrah's
just hanging on.
Bumrah's
just hanging on.
Yeah. And look, there's no shame in that, I guess. It's bloody hard work, and there's experienced people around him who are struggling as much.
Well, let's talk a little bit about Steve Smith, because he's, of course, as we have said incessantly, he's gone 24 innings without a Test 100.
110
a guy who used to make hundreds for fun.
Yep.
You wouldn't have said that today's innings was 100 for fun, because he worked very hard in the first little bit. He was 25 off 70, and he played and missed a bit. His initial movements were very exaggerated early. You could tell the adrenaline was flooding his system. He was getting a long way across. He was creeping forward. He was trying to cover this. He was trying to not to get closed off. It was very much Steve Smith, the problem solver, and sometimes the inadvertent problem creator, because he's constantly tinkering with his method. he gained a lot from the company of Travis Head, didn't he?
God,
I mean,
yeah.
he takes so much pressure off you because he's scoring so freely, and the bowlers are actually often, just sort of they settle onto defensive links because they get used to bowling at Smith. They're a left-hander and a right-hander. The field was spread-eagled at various stages.
Yeah.
It just became much, much easier as time went on for Smith to work those singles into the onside, to get himself off strike. And then sort of from about, I think he took 130 odd balls over his first half century and took less than half that time in the second half. And he started to play some of those shots that he plays when he's really in nick, those beautiful cover drives, those undrives punch down the ground. He played a brilliant pull shot off Reddy over the top today. And he sort of, when Bumrah was out of the attack, the pressure went off and you could tell that he was just starting to enjoy batting again.
It's kind of like working with you, actually. Yeah. I mean, I rarely get to 100 like Steve Smith did. But you're so right about that. And he was spluttering and, trying to find his timing, and he had no power. But he didn't look terrible.
I thought defensively he looked in good shape.
Yeah,
today.
I don't think he looked terrible, and I think there were pretty good signs. And then it clicked, and it was noticeable, wasn't it? As the bowlers wore down, and this is what Head did to them in Adelaide. Was it with Labuschagne, was it? Yeah. The bowlers wore down, and then it was time to cash in. And from about that 55 over mark, either side of tee for 10, 15, perhaps even 20 overs, Australia were going at 6+ runs and over.
And India looked helpless, didn't they?
They looked helpless. In fact, they looked poor. And Rohit Sharma was. You noticed Rohit Sharma's body language, didn't you? Was it you that said that?
It's
to
never
me?
brilliant.
His
Rohit
body
Sharma.
language?
He's not.
I don't want to be judged. Yeah.
No, but he had the arms crossed across the chest, and he was gesticulating with the bowlers. He was obviously trying to convey a message that he didn't feel was quite getting through. And in between times, he was returning to slip. He was pretty lugubrious. There wasn't a lot of chat in the cordon after tea, especially. And well, look, if you've got that on your conscience, sending the opposition in, and you do at times have a long time to brood on it.
Yeah, it's never a good sign, is it, to see the captain run from the slips up to the bowler and talk to them, because like, God, surely they know what they're doing by now. And essentially, like when Head was on strike, they just had people fetching the ball on the boundary, didn't they? For about 5 fielders back, they came up a little bit for Smith, but it was a packed house again. Public tickets sold out.
34,000.
There's a real momentum to this series, and people, the crowd that came today, I hope that they were the same people that came yesterday, because the people
never
who
works
came
out that way, does it? It's a total
does.
lottery.
It's a total lottery, but today's crowd got a day's excitement and everything that was missing the day before. It's 2 days' excitement, as you said earlier in the thing.
It's one of the things about being a test spectator, isn't it? With a white ball game, you are guaranteed to see both innings. You're guaranteed to see your favourite player bat, your favourite bowler bowl. The test match, you really do take a chance, don't you?
Yeah.
Not only on the trajectory of the game, but also on the elements. The elements might have a few tricks to play tomorrow. There's once again, there are showers around. Mind you, there were meant to be showers around today, and it did rain for a period, didn't it? It sort of mizzled around about 11:30, and the players played through it, and it abated. And the spectators who turned out today, they were rewarded. They got extra rations.
Yeah, I think there was rain sort of skirting the Gabba. There's a lot of rain around Queensland, as there is at this time of year. It's really steamy, isn't it? And I did notice that the Indian bowlers and fielders really wear down. In fact, I think the third over, but it may have been the second over. After the second or third over, after the tea break, I saw 3 Indian reserves run out and kind of running like this. I'm like, what the hell's going on here? That was the oddest running I'd ever seen. And each had 2 cups here and 2 cups here of, I guess it's pickle juice or some sort of salted lassi or God knows what it is. But they're running out rehydration drinks and spreading them around the field less than 15 minutes into the session. It was very humid out there. It was very hot out there. But their body language and the fitness of some of those players needed to be questioned. I think that was probably as bad a day as I've seen India put in Australia for some time. That they won't be very happy if they had a look at that day. I mean, the Australians kicked back when their body language was questioned and their efforts were questioned, but they'd run out of petrol before they got to the second new ball, and that's an awful thing. That's an awful thing because that's when Smith and Head, of course, really pinned the years back or whatever you
Head
pinned
played
back.
that beautiful shot, didn't he, off the first ball? The second new ball just pinged it over mid-wicket off Bumrah.
Yeah,
yeah,
and that's the thing. You get the second new ball that you want, that you're kind of keeping yourself in reserve
holding out for.
But by the time you get it, you're heavy of leg, and the batsman's beady eye is especially beady, and they're ready to go. So it can go both ways. It can actually increase the scoring, but they were going at a hell of a rate up to that point anyway. Is there anything else to say about the day, Gideon?
I guess there is an issue, I think, with Reddy as a second seamer.
Yeah.
He's not. He's a batter who bowls.
Correct.
And he's filling a position at number 8 that he's not an exact fit with. It depends on him bowling better than I think the standard that he's capable of attaining at the moment. So that leaves them additionally exposed. They would be anyway because they're so dependent on Bumrah, but Reddy wasn't able to keep it tight today, and they didn't really have any other bowling options with Siraj slightly below par. He did actually go off at one stage with a foot injury or something like that? Or
he'd actually grabbed at the hamstring, which is a bad look, but I suspect it was just cramp.
A bit of discomfort,
Cramp, I'd suggest, because he came back, he did run through as he bowled again. I don't think you're doing that if you've got a slight tear in the hamstring. No. God help them if he had torn his hamstring in the first innings of the match. You're a very experienced cricketer, captain many sides. What are you doing in this situation if you're Australia? Are you pulling the pin now? You're putting them out in the morning. Would you have pulled the pin before close of play
I might
tonight?
even have declared a little bit earlier. I might have got in 5 or 6 overs against India tonight, because there's nothing worse than coming out with nothing to gain and everything to lose towards the end of a day's play. And I think they probably are, with that bit of weather around over the next few days. We are going to be pushed right to the end of this test match. Unusually, that'll make a nice change, won't it? And it has required an entire day of rain to get into that situation.
Just what we didn't want.
Just what we didn't want, yes, exactly, because we're flying out on the last day.
Yeah.
Yep. I never
Which
quite
is
get it
unlike
right,
us. We've
do
never
we?
done, I've never booked a flight after play. And today, and this test I did it.
I did too.
And I thought, oh, God, I know exactly what's going to happen. Yep. We'll be potting from the back of a cab on the way to the airport. But I mean, the alternative to that is to send them out, as we all know, send them out again for 20 minutes, then upset the openers who then have to run off. We've got 10 minutes to prepare and run back on and try and catch them on the hop then.
Should mention Carey. Carey, I thought, played really well tonight. Played exactly as the situation required. And he's got his runs exactly as the captain would have wanted. He hasn't stuck around. He's played enterprisingly. He's played some nice shots. He took Jadeja on, didn't let Jadeja settle, didn't let Jadeja get through quiet overs towards the end of the day. So Australia was still running at the end of the day, and India had stopped to a walk.
Just what you want from a wicket keeper who bats. Bright runs, expansive. I didn't get to see a lot of it because I was running around myself and trying to type. But
a bit of bounce in this pitch, isn't there?
There's
some cracks underneath. A couple of balls hit the cracks today, and they did deviate quite sharply.
That's right. Yeah.
So it'll be a challenge for India, still batting on this surface, and of course, but never judge a surface, Pete, until both sides have batted on.
Of course, you got the pitch intelligence from David Warner, who came up. He's got an encyclopedic mind. And when it was like this, it's 3 millimeters and there's a bit of a crack and it does this and it does that. And wasn't it interesting to hear him say that in advance of a test, he will ring the curator and ask how much water is being put into the wicket, how long the grass is going to be, what the weather's like before. I mean, why you need to know those things in a week in advance, I don't know. But David does like to be across the topic, doesn't he?
Yeah. Maybe it just makes you feel better. Yeah. Maybe it just makes you feel as though you're controlling the controllables. It's interesting. He's a deep thinker on the game, David Warner,
He sure is,
and
isn't
he had quite a long chat today, didn't he?
Yeah, he's got all sorts of theories
Yeah.
and ideas,
Yep.
and he knuckles down on
Yeah,
that stuff. He
he
doesn't
does.
phone it in, does he?
No, and he's looking very dapper, very dapper. I love the
yes.
pocket square, David.
Do
Love
you?
the pocket
Do you
square.
like the check
Yeah.
brown suit? I can't. I don't reckon. As
It's
I said to him,
distinctive anyway. It's
as I said to
distinctive.
him, I don't think you're wearing that round Maroubra, mate.
It's becoming like Haydos's hat, isn't it? It's
Haydos's
becoming
hat.
his signature.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
you've got a pretty significant hat, haven't you?
I do.
Yeah.
I might break that out.
The SPG,
The SPG.
Special
Yeah.
Patrol Group.
Mm.
Mm.
Maybe
Look it
we'll
up.
break that out a little bit later on.
Yeah, we won't go
Yeah.
there now.
Okay.
Well, you could wear it in a pod. Is that what you're going to do?
If you want me to wear the hat,
Yeah.
say so in the comments. All right? We're reading the comments. We're loving it.
Look at
Thanks
you
very
playing
much.
to the crowd, squinting over the
All right.
footlights.
Okay. That's all we've got time for on Cricket et al. this evening. Great to have you with us. We'll be back here tomorrow night. Hopefully we'll have some play to talk about. Fingers crossed. Test match is shaping up very nicely otherwise. So it's good night from me.
It's good night from him. And if you want to read our stuff, you go to
yeah.
cricketetal.com. There's a plug.
Yeah.
Remember,
Yeah.
we do have
yeah.
something else
Yep.
where we try to make
Yep.
some money
Yeah.
from this gig.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Look out. Thanks very much.
Cheerio.
Bye.
Bye.